Hey everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Rock Daydream Nation, and today I've got a special guest, Armando Venditti. How are you, mate?
Doing good, Peter. How are you doing?
Great, great. Today we are going to cover a very special album, and we are covering Depeche Mode Violator from 1990. So this was a landmark album for Depeche Mode. Um, we're going to cover each song on the album, do a deep dive, what we like, what we don't like, and how it basically was very influential into a lot of genres, including rock.
Mhm.
So, Depeche Mode, who are they? Dave Gahan, Martin Gore, Alan Wilder, and Andrew Fletcher. Armando.
Okay, just a bit of a background before we begin, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
It was released on March 19th, 1990, in the US, through Mute and Sire Records, respectively. It was the band's seventh studio album, and it was their international hit. And there's some chart positions here. It was a number one in the US. It hit 42 in Australia. It was a number 7 on the Canadian charts, and it was a UK number 1 album. So this album arguably put them over the top. I would have said Music for the Masses would have done that. But no, and it was this album. And there were I believe there were 4 singles, starting with Personal Jesus, Enjoy the Silence, World in My Eyes, and Policy of Truth. And we'll get into that. And World in My Eyes starts off the album. It's got to be said, the subject matter on this album overall is it's very dark for me. Even with regards to the album artwork on it, black cover, with the red rose in the center, done by Anton Corbijn.
Very, very stark, isn't it?
Very stark, and it does play with your imagination as to what the music is like on the album. I mean, of course, it's electronica overall, but very bass driven sounds, elements. And in reading up on Depeche Mode, what they said that they would do is they would record all the drum patterns, like program all the drum tracks for every song first before they would start filling everything in with the arrangements and stuff with the keyboards. World in My Eyes starts off the album, as I said, and again it's Martin Gore, who is the main songwriter, very prolific. He's the main songwriter. You're basically starting from World in My Eyes, going into his mind, into his, I guess what people can say is his dystopian reality in terms of how he sees the world.
Yes.
It's the lead off lyric on World in My Eyes is, "Let me take you on a trip." So he's telling his girlfriend or his wife or whoever he's with, "Let me tell you what's on my mind and what makes me tick."
Yep.
And which is what I'm taking from it. I mean, everyone can interpret what they want from these tracks. But yeah, it's very dark. It's a very dark.
Absolutely.
Beginning to the album, and it's a thread that begins from track 1 to track 9. It's got to be said.
Yeah. I think with World in My Eyes, it's the thing that grabs me is that hypnotic synth line, which is very Kraftwerk, and you've got to say Kraftwerk was a massive influence with a lot of those electro rock bands. And the lyrically, I think it covers a lot of themes that go around pleasure and gratification.
Yeah,
So
either self
when you think,
or with someone else. So yeah, if we're going to
so
go
when
there.
when you think of the core topics of Depeche Mode leading up to now in this album, salvation, guilt, gratification, yearning, sin,
Self-doubt.
heaven and hell, should I, shouldn't I? And I think they're perfectly distilled in this album. And I think it's a great opening track. And even those little synth stab lines and sequences,
Yes.
it is pure Depeche Mode in this one song. It's a great opener. And to me, it's like, like how there are certain songs that are like an introduce you on a trip, like Magical Mystery Tour in the Beatles. This is like their Magical Mystery Tour. Welcome. This is what the show is going to be. And I think it's a great opener track. And well said. I think you've summed it up.
Well, thank you. I try. I do try. Yeah. And some people might say I'm trying, actually. But it's almost like I was listening to it again today before a couple of hours ago, before we started taping. With the world in my eyes, even right now, I'm thinking about it. It's almost like you can almost hear the door opening, like creaking open.
Yes.
And you sort of going either up a staircase or down a staircase into this individual's psyche.
Mm.
And all of the, and all of what comes with it, and all that's all that's inside of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, it's the track itself is very bass synth driven.
Yeah.
And then you have the very sparse melody keyboard stabs that come in, right? Again, like I like the comparison to Kraftwerk. Very good comparison.
Absolutely. And it's a good segue into the next track, isn't it? Like Sweetest Perfection.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So that even takes it further, where it's even further stripped back.
Yes.
And it explores the themes of World in My Eyes even more.
Yes.
And it goes darker, much darker.
Yes, because with Sweetest Perfection, he's telling the individual, whoever they are, male, female, whoever, I'm going to tell you that, like he's saying to them, I'm going to start to tell you what's making me tick. Intellectually, emotionally.
Bare my soul. Here
exactly. It is. And right now he's telling them, you're strapped into this ride and you're not getting off the ride until I say so.
And it's slightly self-destructive because the narrator has this pursuit of pleasure. And it's like it or lump it. This is the way I'm going. Strap in. We're going on a journey.
Yes. Yes. Put the crash helmet on because you don't know where we're going to end up, and neither do I.
Absolutely.
And I like it that way. Yes.
What I like about this song is comparative. Like the previous album, Music for the Masses, was very lush and epic and a big cinemascape. This album, it's got hooks aplenty, but it's very stripped back. It is very stripped back, and you can see there's a lot more care taken between the instrumentation on each track.
Yeah.
So where Music for Masses was just filling each of the tracks with lush soundscapes, this one is very much more precise, spacious, atmospheric, and the sweetest perfection is a great indication of that.
Very much so. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
because I'm excited about this album. I really want to talk.
It's one of my faves. It's one of my faves.
It's become one of my favorites as well. I'm thinking about buying the 2006 remaster because it has as we were talking before we went on, the 6 additional tracks.
Yeah.
Do I want to pay $106 for it? I've got a mortgage to help pay.
Yeah.
So no, but it's got to be said, in my opinion, Music for the Masses, which I have. I remember when it came out in '87. I remember hearing Strange Love, and then and Behind the Wheel and Pleasure Little Treasure. And I remember hearing Strange Love and thinking, okay, for me, they've arrived. This is good. This is hooky. It's good. It's catchy. It's mainstream, but it still has all the deep, the
Depeche Mode darkness.
The Depeche Mode isms.
Yes.
Of what they're known for. I think that, and I think they capped it off at the 101 live album, the double album they did in Pasadena, in 1988.
I agree with you. That was a catalyst, a stepping stone. But
yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, but what I think is, I think that with Violator, I think that this was an important album for them to do, because I think that if they didn't make a break from the 80s with Violator, it's almost like they shut the door in the 80s and started the 90s on a different chapter. And I think
I agree with you.
But I think that if they didn't make this album, they would have become, to an extent, a parody of themselves.
Yeah. I was listening to the singles, Armando, just to get an overview again, because I've got all the the albums, like, I just brought out One Speak and Spell.
Yeah.
You listen to it and it does sound like the 80s.
Yes, it does.
This sounds now. Violator is a timeless, and you've got synth. There are some synth pop bands, or synth rock bands where the it's kind of it's cold. It sounds dated, very much of the time. This to me sounds current. It sounds now, and it sounds fresh. And you can understand why it was an important album, as you said, and a breakthrough one at that.
Yeah, this album still sounds contemporary. It sounds threatening, and that if this was released as a new album today, this could have kicked any album's ass off the chart of contemporary left dance music.
And that's why they're a draw card, because that's why you've got a lot of those synth pop bands in the 80s that are on greatest hits. So you've got, your Wang Chungs, your Nick Kershaws, that they'll do 2 songs, and then somebody else comes on. They do those greatest hits packages. But this one, they're one of the few 80s acts that can tour in their own right.
I think it's Depeche Mode, along with Erasure.
And Duran Duran.
And Duran Duran. But I will counter that Depeche Mode and Erasure, who have another album out, by the way, Dayglow. I think those 2 groups of the 80s have been able to maintain their popularity and their success, because they remain current. They remain substantial and necessary. And that's my humble opinion. But we're kind of getting off track here, ladies and gentlemen.
No. We always do this, but that's good.
But I mean, I am. We'll get into the track listing again, but I am guilty of, because this was released again in March of 1990. I was just graduating high school, going into college the following September. I knew the hits. I did not give this album. I did not own this album until a month ago. And I am guilty of not giving this masterpiece right here, again, ladies and gentlemen, the proper respect and credit it so bloody well deserves. It's got to be said. This is a 90s masterpiece.
It is.
I'm sorry, but I digress. We must continue, ladies and gentlemen.
Personal Jesus. That's the number 3. Well, what's your views on that track?
Personal Jesus, the first single off the album. If you've seen the video, it has a bit of a cowboy feel to it. The subject matter diverts slightly from the subject matter from the rest of the album, because it talks about, when I was listening to it today, it just struck me today that it talks about, because in the 90s, in the States and in Canada, there was a lot of emphasis put on televangelists, on TV, like phone in and phone in and pledge your money, and, Jesus will save you, and, become of one of the flock of God, and et cetera. One of the lyrics on the track is, pick up the receiver and I'll make you a believer. The hook line is reach out and touch faith. So, I mean, that it kind of ties into what was going on in the 90s at the early 90s at that time. And it fits in perfectly. It's a great track. Very kind of jangly, what sounds like guitars, and could be very easily reproduced live on stage. I could see it being done with kind of like a shuffle drum pattern live, and with live guitars and bass. And it was a hit for a reason. It's a fantastic track.
Yeah, so. I think it's one of their greatest songs. It's a John Lee Hooker riff, and indicative of how good a song is how many people have covered it. Johnny Cash, Marilyn Manson, Def Leppard, Nina Hagen, and even Sammy Hagar.
Really? Good Lord. Okay, you say I'm learning something today. I had no idea. Okay.
It was voted one of the 500 greatest songs from the Rolling Stones, their sort of song polls. The background to the song Personal Jesus is because Priscilla Presley used to call Elvis her personal Jesus. So that's why it was inspired Depeche Mode to write it along those lines.
Okay, that makes sense, because that's where the lyrics come in. Your own personal Jesus, someone to hear your prayers, someone who cares.
It definitely is in that space of the 90s, where there were phone lines, astrology, phone sex, phone dating, and you'd be spending like $50 an hour. It was just bloody rip-off. People, there was a market for people, the vulnerable, and this definitely, the lyrics are very poignant at that particular time. One thing that I found interesting reading about the making of it, how there's this really sort of like a stomp, like a stomp beat. How they got the stomp in the studio is they had 2 or 3 people jumping up and down on suitcases. I found that fascinating.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay. Oh, it makes sense. Okay, because it's got more of a thump. Kind of
But it's you watch it live, and it's a rock song. It's got that rock groove, and you can understand why a lot of rock fans and metal, and you'd be surprised, like there are so many people in hard rock, heavy metal groove on Depeche Mode. And I think it's the lyrical themes are very similar, very dark. And they can sense that a lot of the, even though it's electronic music that use guitars, it's not a rock band that use synthesizer. They are an electronic band that use guitars. There's a dark groove to it. There's a beat, and you can sort of see how it's in their wheelhouse. Why people like Nine Inch Nails are very influenced. Why Marilyn Manson.
Yes.
But I think the quintessential version of this is the Rick Rubin America series with Johnny Cash. Him doing it with that fragile voice is just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So just do yourself a favor and check out that one. But I think Personal Jesus is probably one of their greatest songs. And for a period of time, I don't know if it's still the same. It was the biggest selling 12-inch single for Warner Brothers.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, there's not much more that can be said except that it's just a great song.
Yep.
And the next song is, which I always believed was a single because I have it written down, but it's Halo.
I love the lyrics in this one, Armando.
What are your thoughts on Halo?
Oh, I like the lyrics of "You wear guilt, like shackles on your feet,
Yes,
like a halo in reverse." That's the thing that draws me into this song. I love the halo, the imagery. Not up here.
Yeah. Aha. Yes. Okay. Well, we're not going to go there. Okay.
No, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a family show here, Peter. But I mean, no.
But the good versus evil.
Yeah. It's
knowing it's wrong and sinful,
and still doing it. It's an interesting way to look at it. It's almost like them saying, Mongor is saying to himself, you think you're okay, you think you'll be saved, but will you? There's always that question.
Yeah.
Will you be saved? With everything you're thinking about, everything you're thinking of trying to do in your mind, wherever your mind takes you. And obviously, I mean, it's got to be said again, the lyrics are, if not overtly, it's always playing with sexuality. So I mean, in his, in what he likes and what he thinks and what makes him tick. So for him to think, a halo in reverse. I mean, like, where do you go with that kind of a of a mental picture, right?
So, no, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, yeah, it's great.
I love the drum lines on it, and apparently they sampled the drum lines from Led Zeppelin when the Levy breaks, which I found quite interesting. But they didn't sample it directly from Led Zeppelin. They sampled it from a rap record that had sampled Led Zeppelin when the Levy breaks. So it was like a second generation copy
okay, because
of a drum line.
Okay, because you see, I didn't even pick up on that when I heard it.
And very craftworky, isn't it? Still, with that synth line.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm learning a lot today. The next song, Waiting for the Night. I mean, how can I put this in such a way?
Dim the lights, ambient.
Yes, it's a very introspective track, because he's feeling, the subject matter, he's feeling more comfortable basically in the dark, whether it be like the physical, like, outwardly or inward in his mind. He'd rather have the veil over his thoughts because that way he doesn't have to think about what's going on in his head or what he's thinking of wanting to do, whatever it is. And to him, he's safer with the veil down as opposed to being up.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a almost disturbing track in that.
Yeah.
But they do it in such a way that there's hooks all over the place on this track. So
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of Tangerine Dream.
It's
very emotional. It's fragile. I love the background vocals of Martin Gore. That sort of and that's where, when you said haunting, that's what I was sort of thinking.
Yeah.
It kind of gives a kind of a shiver up your spine, but I think the track placing in this album is sublime, and to go from Halo to Waiting for the Night it seems so logical in the scheme of things, doesn't it?
It's almost like Black as White is to Black. It's like,
yes,
yeah, I completely get this album. Right from the first track takes you on a journey again.
Yep.
And at this point in the album, you're basically in the pit of his mind, like right in the recesses of his mind.
Yep.
And you're going through some corridors that you never thought existed, ladies and gentlemen. And I think it's brilliant.
Yeah. And one thing we need to talk about is like Dave Garn, his vocals. He's got this beautiful baritone voice, and he just croons beautifully.
Yes.
And Martin Gore and his wonderful tenor. They are just two peas in a pod, and they are just made for this band. It's just a wonderful contrast in vocal tonality.
It's almost like they're doing like call and answer. The call and response, where you've got Dave Gahan doing the main line, like in the baritone, but you have Martin Gore in the back, like in the background, sort of responding to musically responding to what he's saying musically. You know, it's like a give and take.
Absolutely.
Sort of, you know, like kind of like a dance vocally between the two of them.
I agree. I think Dave Garn is a superstar. He is one of the great charismatic, and people in this era, pound for pound, they were up there with U2 in the stadium rock, arena rock status. And I might get a lot of crap for this, but I think U2 were looking over their shoulder and probably picked up a few licks or a few show ideas, because I've only seen Depeche Mode once. They've only been to Australia twice. And it was a lot of visuals. So they had a lot of projected visuals out of video clips, a lot of the Anton videos that they had done, a lot of mood lighting. And I saw U2 around that area too, the Zooropa tour and subsequent. I can tell you, I reckon they cribbed a lot of Depeche Mode into Zooropa and subsequent tours.
Well, Peter, if anybody gives you any shit in the comments, direct them towards me, because I support you 1000%. I think that with U2, not to divert too much, but with U2, after Rattle and Hum, they were at a crossroads where they needed to either step up their game or they were going to fall off the face of the earth, because musically, I think that they were, and I'm going to get a lot of shit for this, but bring it on, I don't care. I think musically, U2 at this point were kind of dying off. And I think that if they did not maybe look around at the musical landscape and look at Depeche Mode or other groups at the time and sort of maybe, pickpocket a little bit of their ideas, they were going to fall into obscurity, or they were going to fall into dwindling sales. And luckily, U2 came up with Achtung Baby, which
is one of their greatest albums. And it was very, magnificent.
I think it's their pinnacle for the 90s.
Yeah, but they were definitely in the rear vision mirror. They're driving along the road, and they are looking at Depeche Mode.
Yeah.
And that tour I saw in '89, I was just captivated by how wonderful Dave Garn was as a front man.
He's very charismatic, and he had the ability to have like Freddie Mercury, he had the ability to have the audience eating out of the palm of his hand. You know what I mean? Like, to follow whatever he did. And I
think the tour in Australia was actually 1990. But anyway, it was just fantastic. But he is a great front man, and it's just a great counterpoint between those two. It's like a yin and a yang.
They feed off one another. I mean, and they, and they do it purposely. I mean, and it works. I mean, even going into the next track, Enjoy the Silence, which was the second single from the album. And personally for me, how the song, fades out, and then you hear, Enjoy the Silence, at the very end.
And then a little bit of bells sort of.
Yes. Yeah. I think what they could have done, and pardon me for my singing, people, ladies and gentlemen, I can't sing for shit. I couldn't even.
That was fine.
Sing myself out of a paper bag.
That was good.
Okay, I'll quit my day job and go on the road, go on tour. I think that had they taken that, enjoy the silence, and put that at the beginning of the track as well as the end to sort of like close it off, it would have been fantastic. Like, I'm just, that's my post-production thinking in terms of what to do with it. The track again was, as I say, was the second single. It was the most, I guess you could say, dance oriented in terms of, like the bass beat and the bass drum beat, and sort of like that half beat, that half snare beat, like,
nice little guitar line threaded through too.
Yes.
Yeah, Martin.
And it's that guitar line that hooks you in. It grabs you by the throat and it says, come in here and listen to what I'm going to say to you. And even the video is so stark. It's of Gahan dressed in king's crown, like in a with a king's crown
in the middle of nowhere. In the middle of nowhere.
And it means, and ladies and gentlemen, it means that as much as he thinks he's on top of the world, he's lonely.
He's got nothing.
He's got nothing. You know what I mean? This idea of all these tangibles that are going to make you happy, it's a fantasy.
It's a magnificent film clip, isn't it?
It's fantastic. It is fantastic. It doesn't exist. That's what they're saying. Whatever you think is going to make you happy, all the money, all the jewels, all the cars, nothing that's tangible is going all these tangibles are not going to make you happy. It comes from within.
Yeah. How he's got that. I love the concept, how he's got the fold-up chair. He keeps moving around.
Yeah, because he's a nomad in that respect. Like
nomad.
He can't settle down.
And it certainly lines up with, silence, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The thoughts and feelings are all that matter.
Yeah.
Words are not necessary, and he's just in the middle of nowhere.
And they managed to capture that within a bloody, brilliant dance track. I mean, I wasn't able to go to clubs at that point. I was a late bloomer, everybody. But you can just imagine the dance floors being filled. Because at that point you had remixers like Shep Pettibone, all the American, like Arthur Baker, all these American producers, remixers that would take these tracks and make them into a remix or a club mix for the dance clubs.
Yeah.
And I mean, and there are two hidden tracks, ladies and gentlemen, on this album. After Enjoy the Silence, there's a fade out when you hear him singing. And then there's another track that comes in for it fades out around the 4:30 mark. And then it comes in another track that's called Crucified.
Yeah.
And it's just like a 2 minute, 10-second little instrumental piece that comes in, which I think is great. There's a lot of mood, atmospheric setting that's going on in this album too.
Yeah.
A lot of textures, a lot of mood adjusting, I'll call it.
Yes.
And then, sorry, I didn't mean to monopolize the conversation.
No. You've just really a good little segue into this song, which is Policy of Truth. I love this song. No, it's just the 12-inch. But there is a couple of mixes on the back, the Capitol mix. But this was the song that really hooked me into the album.
Really?
I love it. And I loved it's stripped back, but it has a groove. And again, you've got that wonderful Dave Gahan, just his baritone just crooning over. It's kind of got a bluesy guitar line. And the funny thing is, how they made this was it was a single guitar note that was programmed and looped, and they played it via a keyboard. So you think it's a guitar, but it's actually sequenced as a loop.
So it's basically a couple of keys on the keyboard that are hit, And
I love the lyric. I love the lyrics. You confess to a wrongdoing, but you can't take it back.
only the politicians out there in the world would listen, take that to heed, and we won't mention any names. We won't go there, but yeah.
The lyrics, it's too late to change events. It's time to face the consequences for delivering the proof in the policy of truth. Yeah, I just love I think the lyrics are sublime on this whole album, but that's just gold.
I've said this before, not to go off I'll go off on just on a very quick tangent. I've always thought of Tears for Fears as thinking man's pop.
Yes, I agree.
I would also say the same of Depeche Mode.
Yeah, well, Tears for Fears are another band that still play concert halls, big venues,
exactly.
and don't have to go down that 80s, package tour.
Exactly. I think that I put a posting on Facebook one day that said that, and I went on in this description of Songs from the Big Chair as a mid-'80s masterpiece, because you had all of these different elements coming together. You had rock, pop, jazz, fusion.
Yes.
All coming together and in a melting pot and working so perfectly.
Yeah. Well,
I think there was nowhere to go but up from there.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I like how you brought them into our show, because they're another band where you think are kind of sunny and pop, but when you look at the lyrics, oh God, they're dark.
They're not. I mean,
very dark.
I mean, just bear with me. I'm sorry, but if you there's an they did an album in 1995 called Raúl and the Kings of Spain, Tears for Fears, that was released on Epic Records in the US, in North America. It didn't sell well, but there's one track on there called "Me and My Big Ideas," which Roland Orzabal does with a duet with Olita Adams. And that track alone brings me to tears.
Yeah.
Because he's telling the person in the song, he's basically saying in the song, I'm not the person for you. You think I'm the person for you, but I'm not. You need to spread your wings and fly and leave me, because I can only bring you down. So you can leave with my permission. Go. Spread your wings. There's a lyric that says, there's so many strings to your bow. Why not let one go? Meaning, leave me. Go. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but going off on a tangent. These are not lyrics of, boy meets girl,
No.
Girl, gushing love songs.
And that's why they got longevity in their careers, because there's depth.
There's depth, there's introspection, there's self-doubt, there's criminalizing. It's like you're saying that you're flawed, and you're admitting your flaws, and you're laying it all out on the table.
Put it all out
on the table. Yeah.
And that's why Depeche Mode are,
perfect. They are
absolutely.
They are absolutely perfect. Yeah. Yeah.
Blue Dress.
Ooh.
What's your view on that one? Talk about putting it out there.
Seductive, instructive, destructive.
Martin Gore, beautiful vocals.
Yeah, slightly sleazy in the topic, in the subject matter, but brilliantly executed. It's almost like it's like a continuation of Sweetest Perfection. It could be sort of like part two.
Counterpoint.
Counterpoint. Exactly. Yes. It's
be yourself. That's what I think it
Mark,
says.
yeah,
Be
yeah,
yourself. Come as you are.
yeah. And it's the second track with Martin Gore on lead vocals. It's just,
I love his vocals. He's this beautiful tenor.
he can hit the notes. He can go at a high octave, like at a high register, so effortlessly.
Yeah, for the viewers, I recommend a track off the Ultra album, which was a couple of albums later, Home. Oh my God, brings tears to my eyes. His vocals are just to die for. But yeah, I always loved Martin Gore's vocals. Great counterpoint.
Yeah. And Blue Dress is, there's another hidden track, and it's just called Interlude number 3 on the album. And again, they were very sneaky and like putting in the extra, like these little extra hidden little gems. You know, it's like, you know, you think the song is over. It's like, oh, it's not. Here we go. Here's another little you know, little synth piece.
Yeah.
And, you know, just enjoy it to the end. And then the album ends off with a track called Clean.
Love this song. What a finisher.
Yeah. And it basically wraps up the album as he's coming through. He's been through a cathartic experience, and he's looking for or claiming redemption for himself. Like he's been through hell and back, you know, and this is him coming out the other side saying, I may not be perfect, but at least I've cleansed myself of what I've done and my thoughts previous. So it's a great track.
I agree.
A beautiful piece of music. There were in having the album, I think having only 9 tracks, I think kind of shortchanges it, because there are on the 2006 remaster, there are 6 other songs. 3 of them are instrumental. Okay. There was one track that called Dangerous with Dave Gahan on lead, which is fine. It's, you know, standard fare. There's one track called another track, which is an instrumental called oh my God, Mephisto. And it starts off as a beautiful piano piece, synth piano piece, a combination of synth and piano. The melody line is copied on both synth and I believe piano, and it just goes along. And then there's another song on Music for the Masses called Pimph, where it just starts off on piano and then it busts out into the song, like really grand production, really grand vocals, like over the top, you know, harmony vocals that come in. Mephisto does that as well. And I believe there's 2 of them. There's that one, Mephisto. There's another one called Sibling, which is just a beautiful piano driven piece, melodic piece. I think that had they included these 2 tracks within the album, it would have put it over the top even more. It would have just sealed. It would have made a perfect album.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect album as it is. But those 2 tracks, just as I don't see anything wrong with having an instrumental track or 2.
Yep.
If it encompasses the album as a whole and makes it better. Right? I mean, if you're able to go on, ladies and gentlemen, go on YouTube, look it up. I'm telling you, it's there. I can't say enough about it. I mean, if those 2 tracks were like interspersed within the run of the run of the album, like it would have been perfect.
Yeah. I think the album is fine as it is, but I'm interested in your views. And one thing I wanted to introduce and just briefly touch upon is that the production is sublime. It was produced by Depeche Mode and Flood. Now, Flood was very popular and renowned for producing such acts as New Order, U2, Nine Inch Nails.
There's the U2 connection.
There you go. So I love his production work on a lot of those albums. And I think the production on this album is just beautiful. The spatiality between the various instruments, synth lines, is just to die for. And as I said, the whole sound of the album is stripped back, but hooky as hell.
Yes.
And it's light and shade. And a lot of people who say that synth bands are very cold, it's all programming. You've got the Fairlight, you've got all those, sort of those cold, clinical synth lines.
And at the time, it would have been the Fairlight, the C1 Fairlight, the emulator.
It's so warm. It's so warm, and got so much texture for something that's supposedly a cold medium, a cold instrumentation. Because there's just so much warmth all the way through.
Yes.
And as I said, this is a revolutionary album for Depeche Mode because for their next album, Songs of Faith and Devotion, they progressed more into the guitar, more into the rock.
More
and it went down into that path, still with their foot being as an electronic band.
Yeah, and with Songs of Faith and Devotion, they admitted that they wanted to move into more live instrumentation for the recording and for the tour that followed for that, the Devotion tour.
And more rock excess, unfortunately, because poor Dave, almost died.
Yes. He overdosed. Yes, and just to add to your point about having 80s bands sound very clinical and very cold. Yes, the keyboards are used, the synth basses are used, but it takes a person to come up with those lines, those bass lines, and those melody lines for the keyboard. So it's still human made. Like there's still a warmth to it. It's not that mechanical if you really think about it, because they had to come up with these ideas in order to do it. So
but sometimes the cold mechanical sounding of electronica works into that sphere as a positive. Like Gary Newman, those first couple of albums are sheer masterpieces. It's cold, it's clinical, and in that sense, it projects that whole sort of persona of detachment. It's the whole Gary Newman universe, and that's fine. But what I'm saying with this is that the synth is very warm, textural, and it works in well with the lyrical content of salvation, guilt, passion, sin, sex, life, death,
redemption,
life, the universe, and everything. Yes,
forgiveness, and and self-doubt.
But in the world of Gary Newman with electronica, it's about detachment, futurism, robots.
Yes, there is a very, very. That's a very good point. There is an exact element of detachment with Gary Newman's music, whereas groups like Depeche Mode, especially with this album, it's there's a human element to this album that I don't think was there previous. Of course, that's my very humble opinion.
I agree with you.
Probably going to get lambasted in the comments, but
no, the reason why I agree with you is because I think the thing that keeps it human is a guitar line. There's a little bit, they're putting their foot in rock. They're putting their foot in real instruments, and that makes it more attached, not detached. Out of the synth into the more, into that sort of universe.
Into the human realm. It's got You're right. You're 100% correct.
Yeah.
To me, that's what makes this whole album a masterpiece. I'm sorry. I know that word gets bantered around quite easily and quite freely, but in this case, it fits.
It does. And I'm an absolute Depeche Mode nut. I've bought every single one of their albums. Some are good, some not so good, but I can say with complete clarity, this is their greatest album. I don't think they ever topped it. Some of their later albums had flashes of it and they tried to get back to it, but I don't think they ever attained that sort of lightning in the bottle experience as this particular album. I think this is their stone cold peak.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. And I mean, I'm not just agreeing with you because, you're the host of the show and, I like to be called back for another episode at some point in time. But, shameless plug there for myself, ladies and gentlemen. But I mean,
you're always welcome on the show, Armando.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Now back to the album. I think that in terms of comparisons, I think that this is their Dark Side of the Moon. This is their Sgt. Pepper.
Yep.
I don't think, I mean, even with songs of faith and devotion, it was good. I don't think that they hit it on all levels on albums after this. I think this was their zenith, if you want to use adjectives. This was their peak, like you said, their peak, where they were just going on, firing on all cylinders, and they were coming off the tour, the success of the Music for the Masses tour, and they were just going for it. They didn't care, and they managed to craft note for note, track for track, a fantastic piece of work.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. Yeah. Well, Armando, I really enjoyed discussing this album, doing a deep dive. It's just great to have you on the show. And please, viewers, tell us what you think of Depeche Mode, Violator, and some of the, at the end of the day, it's just our opinions. But I think this is an album that both Armando and I has made an impact. And certainly one that it's just one of my all-time favorite albums. So do yourself a favor, check it out. Please subscribe to Rock Daydream Nation, put your comments down, and I can assure you we'll have another show and we'll dissect an album real soon. See you later.
Looking forward to it.